Hey guys, so going to do today's episode of Ask Matt the Caveman again as a live Q&A based on the popularity of the one we did last Monday, and so the topic of cholesterol comes up a lot, and I've broken it down quite a bit, yet still always get the questions. So I'm just going to come on here and listen to your questions, what you want to know about cholesterol, what you think you know about cholesterol, and really help to dispel some of the myths versus the truths about cholesterol. So jump on, ask your questions, and I'll be happy to go through it. Hey Michael, hey Kevin, hey Joe, what's up guys? So yeah, just throw out your questions regarding cholesterol, and I'd be happy to really break it down because there's still so much confusion about what is cholesterol, why it's important, whether we should be lowering it or not. Hint, we shouldn't, but go with me. But yeah, like I said, with this one, I really wanted to do it as a Q&A, mostly because I've covered it a couple times now, but a lot of times it's pretty in-depth. I have to really retrain everything, so it's great to know what your actual questions are. So, what's up, Chrissy? So, like I said, we'll start questions. If we don't really get some questions, I'll be happy to just start going. Okay. Thanks, Kevin, for getting the first question out there. The little bit of delay on the when I see your comment to when I respond to it, it messes up everything. But thanks, Kevin. So explain the good and bad cholesterol. So the concept of good cholesterol versus bad cholesterol applies to HDL and LDL. Now, HDL stands for high-density lipoprotein. LDL stands for low-density lipoprotein. Now, neither one of them is actually cholesterol. They're actually the taxi that drives cholesterol around. The reason why HDL is good is because it brings cholesterol out of circulation. It brings it out of your blood and brings it to your liver to be recycled. The reason why LDL is bad is the fact that it goes from your liver out into circulation. Now, the idea of whether or not it's good or bad is a matter of what it's doing. Is it more important of why it's out there? That's really what I come down to. Is it's really more important to me, why is there more cholesterol going into circulation? So why are your bad numbers higher? Why is it going out there? So that really comes down to inflammation. I think I got Joe has a comment here. When does the concept of cholesterol as firefighters apply and when does it not? So that's actually where I was going to go into next. Awesome. Thanks, Joe. So the idea of cholesterol as firefighters. Cholesterol has a lot of roles in the human body. One of its biggest ones is part of your immune system. So if you have a lot of inflammation, if you have a lot of fires throughout your body, what's going to happen? Firemen are going to go out. Now, that's something I like to refer to as the fireman's paradox. I got it originally from a lecture I attended with Peter Attia, and he's awesome on that. And the way it works is, if there is a large fire, clearly a lot of firemen are going to show up. Now, the paradox comes in is, the answer to that is, are firemen inherently causing fires? And the answer, of course, is no. Firemen aren't the ones causing the fire. Just because a lot of them showed up to the party doesn't mean that they actually are inherently arsonists. They didn't necessarily cause that fire. So just because we find a lot of cholesterol, particularly the LDL going out, doesn't mean that the cholesterol actually caused it. It's going out there to help deal with that damage. So we have to look more at what actually caused that damage. All right. So let's get a couple more questions going. Otherwise, I'll build off of that thought. But the idea, essentially, like we said, Kevin, back to your question, is that it's neither good or bad. It's a matter of what it's actively doing. So if you don't have a lot of inflammation, cholesterol is going to be diverted more to its other roles, such as steroid production, such as maintenance of your brain tissue, such as creation of vitamin D. So if you don't have to keep sending it out to deal with inflammation, you're not going to have those issues. it can actually be used for its proper purposes. I'll wait for another. Here we go. Okay. Faye, I think. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I went off my cholesterol meds. I was on a paleo diet, including ghee, coconut oil. I have fibro. My cholesterol skyrocketed. Why? All right, so we're going to have to talk about what is your skyrocketed numbers. How high are we talking, first of all? Because if we're talking about in the high 200s, no big deal. If we're talking about in the 600s, then we're looking at some serious inflammation. So that's a whole nother concept, if you can give me an idea of where they're at. That being said, you said you went off your cholesterol meds. What were you on? Most likely statins, I'm assuming. Because if you could just fill that out a little more. So while I wait for you to finish that, I'll kind of just build off that thought. Like I said, if our cholesterol numbers are going super high, more often than not, we're looking at systemic inflammation of a high degree. Funny enough, though, if you've had systemic inflammation for a long period, your cholesterol numbers actually might tank. So that's a whole nother concept we could talk about. But for now, generally, if it's jumping, okay, based on Australian figures, it was 10.4, which is double the standard. Well, let me look that up real quick. 10.4 Australian converted to millimole. And millimole. Got the conversion there. Because the fact is, I don't necessarily trust the ranges given by most through most conventional medicine. The reason being is that those are pathological ranges. Basically, if you're outside that, you're going to have a major problem. Whereas if we're talking about functional ranges, then that's going to show you longer term what the issues actually are. The bigger problem with that also is that we've been taught to just lower. So let's see. The conversion for 10.4 cholesterol to millimole is, hold on. Is that grams per liter there, Faye? 10.4. Sorry for anybody who's joining right now, just looking at my chin, trying to figure out a conversion of European numbers to millimole. So let's see, we're gonna go from 10.4 milligram. That doesn't seem right. It looks like it's okay. So we're talking about 402. Yeah, that's relatively high. It's not terrible. Realistically, if we're looking at that at a 402 number, they're on the higher end. Now, the fact that you said you had fibromyalgia, I'm assuming fibro is what we meant by that. It's a shortened version of that. You definitely are dealing with some systemic inflammation pretty much at all times. What I'd want to look at are, can you incorporate things that to balance that inflammation? So, balancing your omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Focus on your gut. Make sure you're getting in things like CBD oil, turmeric, ginger, piperine extract. So things like that, things to reduce that inflammation are going to be huge if we're looking at supernormative cholesterol levels. Because the bigger issue isn't the fact that the numbers are high. The bigger issue is the fact that you have that inflammation going on. So that's what we're really going to want to look at. Looking at what's going on. And hey, Lynn, what's up? Do you have any more questions? Like I said, I really wanted to pop on this one to help answer some common things I see and really clear it up a little bit. That way, we can make sure that we're answering to your satisfaction. Go ahead. No problem, Faye. I'm glad you enjoyed it. At least helped you possibly, I don't know. Any more questions, guys? Let's get something going. That way I can really build off of that. All right, so while I'm waiting for some more to come in, let's talk a little bit about why your cholesterol is actually important, right? The biggest reasons why cholesterol is important, like we said before, is that it's part of your immune system. That's where the inflammation thing comes in. But it's the building block to your hormones, both your sex hormones and your stress hormones. So it goes from cholesterol, and then it goes down to pregnenolone, and then it goes and deviates off of there to a number of different pathways. It goes down the DHEA pathway, and it goes down the stress hormone pathway. So down to progesterone, and then goes all the way down there. I've drawn that up a couple of times now in the videos. You can go back and look at those. But essentially, if you don't have enough cholesterol, you're not going to produce your stress hormones, you're not going to produce aldosterone, so you can have some urinary issues. You're not going to produce your reproductive hormones, so you're going to lose fertility, you're going to lose libido, you're going to lose all that fun stuff. It's a major building block to your brain matter, so you're going to see common issues with low cholesterol, or you're going to see cognitive decline. That's a major problem we see with statin drugs. We're destroying our brain in the process. So just arbitrarily lowering our cholesterol is not a good idea. Deal with the root cause, period. So things like vitamin D. People always worry about their vitamin D. Well, you need cholesterol in order to produce vitamin D. It's our own little version of photosynthesis. Without enough cholesterol, you're not going to be producing any. So you need it. Guys, a lot more quiet than you were last time. I guess I don't know if it's the Sunday night or if it's the dedicated topic, but everybody always has questions about cholesterol. Man, I do a Q&A and no one wants to ask questions. So let's go back to that inflammation I did before. So, and the firefighters. The case of fires are, if we're talking about atherosclerotic plaques, we're talking about buildups that have cholesterol in it. And what happens in that case? Well, the cholesterol shows up to essentially help form like a scab. Okay, so if you cut yourself on your skin, what's going to happen? You're going to get a scab. Now, inside your body, you start to build up fibrous clots. So there's fibrous tissue, but cholesterol also starts to fill it up. That's the fatty streak in that atherosclerotic plaque. Now, why is it showing up? It's helping to deal with that damage. It's helping to deal with the inflammation. Because if you have an open wound on your skin, it's going to be a problem. If you have an open wound, you have the damage done to your blood vessels, you're going to have a problem as well. So the cholesterol shows up to help fix it. The problem comes in, we have a combination of factors. So if we continually light those fires, we continually cause damage, that inflammation, well, that plaque gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not the fact that cholesterol was actually there, it's the fact that cholesterol is trying to deal with it. So cholesterol isn't the cause, it's trying to be part of the solution. From there, the next thing you want to look at is what was the cause of that? What was the reason why that happened? So if we're talking about on our skin, those scabs again, if the cause was a slice, if you get hit with a knife, don't get hit with the knife again. So you gotta figure out what the inflammation is, what's causing that problem. All right, we got another question. Michael asks, my cholesterol is 240 per deciliter, got it, not dough. 240 milligrams per deciliter, a level that being 64 is protected from dementia and is at a good place for all-cause mortality. What would you say to a doctor who insists I take a statin, which I refuse to do? So you're absolutely right, Michael. The fact of the matter is 200 is the arbitrary cutoff they have now because over the last 30 years they've been pushing statins. They keep lowering that number because heart disease hasn't gotten any better. I don't understand what's happening. The rates are still the same. So they keep lowering that number to be able to have more people who qualify to be put on a statin drug. They're even trying to start give statins to kids these days. It's mind-blowing. So the fact of the matter is, 240 is perfect. The great range, the ideal range from a functional perspective, about 170 to 240. 240 is great. In terms, like you said, in terms of protective from dementia, in terms of all-cause mortality, amazing. Great numbers. In terms of what to say to the doctor, I mean, how long you been with them? How much does he actually respect your opinions? The fact of the matter is, I know you personally. You are a very intelligent person. You should be able to convince him. And if he is that steadfast, he wants no part of it, I'd look into another doctor, honestly. It's one of those where you can only try and convince them so much. And if they're really just not having any of it, what can you do? In terms of trying to convince him, I would try and show him the literature. You know, you're similar to me in the sense of, you know, you like digging into the actual science. And if they're receptive to that end, if you can walk in with a stack of papers, what's he going to say? If he does, if he still says, no, you have to be on the statins, then he's being intellectually dishonest. So let me know if you need help with those studies. If you want to actually try that and come in with a stack of papers, I'd be happy to provide you with any that are behind a paywall that you can't get access to. So let me know, and I'd love to be able to do that, because one of those things where it's like, psh, 22 years you've been with him, and he's still playing that game. Yep, exactly, Kevin, or an idiot. I was trying to be nice, but yes, he was either being intellectually dishonest or an idiot. More likely, if Michael's been with him for 22 years, though, he's probably decent. So I don't know if he's a complete idiot, but he's kind of indoctrinated. So that being said, we were talking a little bit before about, you know, finding that root cause, addressing that issue. Apparently, our little side discussion kicked everybody up. Everybody's like, nope, don't want to hear that. But going back to that issue of why is that happening? Why are you going out? So we have those cuts. Deal with that cause. If you keep getting cut by a knife, stop getting cut by that. Find that root cause of that inflammation. What is damaging those blood vessels, and deal with it from there. So don't worry about the cholesterol. I know I sound like a broken record because it keeps coming up. And he knows I was a cholesterol researcher. So I just don't get it. I don't get it. Well, I do. So here's the deal. If you've had a doctor that long, if you've had a doctor for that long, and they've been in the game for that long, how do you go and tell your patients that I've been wrong for the last 30 years, and in fact, I may have just contributed to your risk of heart disease and neurodegenerative disease, because we've been indoctrinated into that low-fat dogma for so long. The entire generation is now stuck on it, and the fact of the matter is that not only are they stuck on it, they're suffering the ill effects of it. And if you have to admit, besides from the legal ramifications of class action lawsuits and, you know, in terms of, no, not class action in that case, but malpractice lawsuits, excuse me, in this case specifically, class action would be more against the FDA and the USDA and all those that actually, nope, the AMA, the AMA and the American Heart Association, so the AHA, the company, the organizations that put forth these guidelines. So we're going to be dealing more on that end. That would be like more of a class action. I'm kind of just spinning wheels here, but essentially what I was trying to get at is that one of those things where if you've been telling them the same thing and it's actually in the long term going to hurt them, it's not great for your career longevity if you've been telling them one thing and it turns out, oh wait, I was wrong. There's a little bit of a loss of trust. But honestly, in most cases, it's not even their fault. It's just what they were taught, and they haven't kept up with the current research. All right. Faye, what would cause nausea when I eat sauerkraut? I used to eat this with no symptoms in terms of problems with gut inflammation. That's a good question. I'll touch it. I'll touch on it briefly, but we're really trying to focus more on the cholesterol for today. I'm probably going to do another just pure Q&A again, Faye, at some point. But essentially, the biggest issues you'd have there, occasionally when you have food, more often than not, you can end up actually building an intolerance to it. So if you always eat the same thing, particularly if you have a little bit of immune dysregulation going on already, you can actually almost give yourself an intolerance or a sensitivity, as weird as that may be. Do you notice any other gut inflammation issues? Kevin asked gluten. I'm assuming that Faye's not, that she's not consuming one that's in a bag or in a can or anything. I'm assuming she means raw sauerkraut. Because if not, if it's a processed one, then yeah, maybe you're right. It's definitely a possibility. So I think I'm going to call this one a half an hour today. I'm not going the full hour today. So let's get a couple more questions on this one. Let's really get it going. Any more going on? So we talked a little bit about why cholesterol isn't really the cause. That's really part of the solution. We talked a little bit about why cholesterol actually is important. We talked a little about artificially lowering cholesterol and why that's not necessarily a great idea. Yep, I've definitely used that before. Bueller. I mean, you can always ask another question, Kev. You know, you can always ask another one. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers the basics. I mean, let's be very clear. The basics of the issue. I was really hoping for a little bit more input in terms of thoughts and direct questions, because the problem is, so there's so much misinformation that is directed as a half-truth that in order to properly dissect each of them, I have to start from the beginning. So the cholesterol conversation is much better as an open exchange, like a back and forth. That way I know where you're coming from, so I know what I need to go more in depth on, because it's a pretty deep rabbit hole that you can get into, and most of the things I was saying are broad generalizations. So, with the exceptions of Michael and Faye's questions, where I got a little deeper into their issues. But definitely give me a Bueller. Alright guys, if there's no more questions, probably gonna call it then in like a minute or two, so we'll do a 25-minute instead. But I don't know. All I know is that next time someone has a cholesterol question, I'm gonna be like, "Where were you on the live stream, guys?" Slow night. I know, right? I guess Sunday night's not the good night. I'll keep that in the back of my mind for a metric. Everybody's watching whatever show's on tonight at 8:30 or 8 o'clock. Alright guys, I'm gonna call it here then. Those of you who joined me, awesome, thank you so much. Hopefully helped you out. Those of you who couldn't join me tonight or didn't and are watching the replay, you can ask questions. I'll be happy to put more questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them as goes. Just comment them in. Hey Kim, getting ready to sign off now because a little slow, so a little slow at the end there. But yeah, so if you missed the live stream, go ahead, leave some questions in the comments. Otherwise, guys, thanks for coming on. I will see you tomorrow.